This is the XS Noize Music Podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 57 of the XS Noize Music Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I talked to the Welling Presence David Gedge about their new release, 24 Songs. It's the band's new project where they will release a new 7-inch single every month throughout 2022. If you missed last week's episode, Daniel Lynch talked to American singer-songwriter Dave Hawes about his 5th studio album, Blood Harmony. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, it would be amazing if you can subscribe and share it with your friends. If you want up-to-date music news, album reviews and interviews, then check out our main website at xsnoize.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Search for the tag at XS Noize Music. Here's XS Noize writer Daniel Lynch with a taste of what's been on the website this week.
Good lyrics always come from bad times, so says Ginger Wildheart anyway. He's been chatting to Dan Volahov about the new Wildhearts album 21st Century Love Songs and how his love of horror movies influenced the album's artwork and videos. That's in our interviews section. The new album from War on Drugs gets an 8 out of 10 score from us. The band's 5th release, I Don't Live Here Anymore, has echoes of Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young and Dylan, Jacob and Bob, but it doesn't hit quite as hard as the band's last 2 efforts. Finally, proof that fans have power. Radiohead have released a video for Follow Me Around. The track dates back to 1997 when it was played by the band in soundchecks. Fans campaigned to have it included in the main show, and now it'll be released as part of a collection of material unearthed from the Kid A sessions. The video starring Guy Pearce is streaming now at xsnoize.com.
24 Songs is a new project from the Welling Presence. The band will release a new 7-inch single every month throughout 2022. I caught up with the Welling Presence frontman David Gedge to talk about the release, James Bond soundtracks, George Best and much, much more. So sit back, relax and enjoy the XS Noize Music Podcast with the Welling Presence David Gedge. Hi David, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. 30 years ago, the Welling Presence released the Hit Parade, where the band released a limited edition 7-inch single every month through 1992. And next year, you're doing it all over again by releasing 24 songs, a new 7-inch single every month through 2022. So, what inspired you to do this again all these years later?
Well, it was, the Hit Parade was quite a big thing for us. I remember at the time, it was, and we felt kind of really excited about the project and we were very proud of the project. And it's become one of those things that people always kind of ask me about, in the 30 years since, when I do an interview for anything, people say, tell us a bit about the Hit Parade, because that was quite a unique project. So this year I was kind of thinking, obviously with the 30th anniversary coming up on the horizon, should we do something to commemorate it in some way? And I was kind of going backwards and forwards with kind of thinking, well, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do like Hit Parade kind of redo or whatever, part 2. Because, part of the beauty of it was the kind of the uniqueness, really, I think. But then I thought, maybe we could do something similar, but, do it again, really, but, not linked to it in some way. Because obviously there's differences this time is, because at that time we did an original on each A side and a cover version on each B side. This time we're just doing 24 songs. Some are covers, some are not, kind of thing. Most are not, actually. But yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of nice to do something like a new project with a kind of a nod to that project, in a way, without kind of replicating it.
Can you remember the first 7-inch record you bought?
Well, if I'm honest, it was Rolf Harris, Two Little Boys. In the 60s, but I guess we don't want to really talk about too much about that one.
Not anymore, no.
No. And I think I had Glory Man United as well as a kid on the 7-inch. But I think the first kind of proper one that I went out and bought, because I think those were probably bought for me, was Hot Chocolate, kind of You Sexy Thing, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
Miracle. Because I love that record. So, that was the first single. I don't know whether that was kind of mid-70s, I suppose, for about 14 or something. But, that was the first one.
Yeah, I miss those days myself, going into Woolworths and buying your records, buying 7 inches and buying albums, bring those days back.
That was part of the impetus for the first hit parade, really. I say first hit parade, the hit parade, because I think it was just at that point where kind of 7-inch vinyl was dying out, really. And it was all kind of, we'd been through all that marketing of cassette singles and CD singles and all the rest of it. And on the horizon, there was downloads and all the rest of it. So we kind of felt like it was almost like the last gasp of 7-inch singles. And it was, but then they kind of come back again now. Vinyl has had this resurgence, hasn't it? And so it's weirdly, it's kind of fashionable again now. But I know what you mean. I loved that. Going to a record shop and buying a record. It was an experience, wasn't it? It's not just something you stream onto your computer like it is nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that vinyl it has been making a resurgence. It's fantastic, although it's slightly a bit more expensive than it was back in the day. But
loads more expensive, isn't it? Because it was, I think probably the time when we did the hit parade, it was about $149 for the 7-inch single. And now it's a tenner. It's ridiculous. But I can see why. It's because of supply and demand. Because we've had this problem with doing the series now. So I'm sure you're aware, a lot of the vinyl pressing plants closed down after the 70s and 80s because there was no demand anymore. And so there were a few remaining. And now it's back in vogue and everybody wants vinyl. No one, I think, wants to kind of build kind of new factories because they think, well, if it's a fashion, I'm going to waste loads of money here. So it comes down to all these people trying to get vinyl pressed in these limited number of factories. And I think that's driven up prices. And then you've got obviously Brexit and, no lorry drivers anymore and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a bit of a squeeze, really. I think that's it's a shame, but it's become more of a boutique-y thing almost now. It's an expensive kind of because it used to be the thing, wasn't it? You heard a thing on the song on the radio, and you bought the 7-inch single, and that was it. Now it's almost like you can stream it on Spotify, all the rest of it, and the 7-inch is almost like this extra thing that you can have, which is really nice to collect. But it's not the fundamental thing anymore, is it? Really, it's all changed.
Yeah, well, personally, Spotify is great for testing out an album or listening to a track. But if I really like it, I will go and buy the physical.
Yeah, totally.
The physical release.
I think most people like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good tool. Spotify is a great tool for that.
Actually, most old people do that, don't they? I don't think kids do. Having said that, the record shop in Brighton just opened up recently, and it was full of kids. And they're buying LPs, and not just new LPs as well. They were buying, the Velvet Underground and stuff, which I thought that was, and I never thought I would see that again. I never thought I would go to a record shop, because normally record shops these days are filled with kind of middle-aged blokes. And suddenly there was this place in Brighton, and it was almost like, stepping back in time, which was quite cool, really.
The first release from 24 songs includes a duet with the amazing Louise Wener from Sleeper. The track's called We Should Be Together, which originally featured on the Lockdown and Stripped Back release. Louise is a legend. How did you find working with her?
Oh, she's great. Yeah, she's really easy to work with, very, very professional, obviously a great singer, and it's their song. It's a Sleeper song, that song. That is a cover. And it came about just because our new guitarist is Jon Stewart, who is the Sleeper and guitarist as well. So the guitarist in Sleeper as well. So, it was shortly after he joined, actually, a couple of years ago. And he said, I've got, there's a song here that Sleeper kind of wrote years ago. I think it was probably around the first album time that they did. And they never used it. And he played me this demo. And I said, that's a great song. We should cover that. And he said, well, we'll ask Louise and she wants to do a duet, which obviously did, thankfully. And so we did it on the, like you said, on the lockdown session thing. And then it seemed like it'd be a nice one to start off this series with as well. So, yeah, because Sleeper were kind of my favourite band out of the kind of Britpop bands anyway, really. So it's nice to be able to, kind of dovetail that into the wedding, into the world of the wedding present. She can't escape now. She's on a wedding present record now. And also, we did I don't know if you saw, we did like a compilation of Bond themes. It was for charity. It was for the Calm charity, and I asked Sleeper to do that as well, and so we did another duet on there as well, which was really good. So that was kind of Sleeper featuring me, and this is the wedding present featuring Louise. So we've kind of gone both sides of that now, which is. But they all live in Brighton as well, so it's been great. It's been very nice, very very productive to meet them.
And how did you meet Jon Stewart? How did he get involved with the wedding present?
He was just suggested to me, actually, as we were looking for a guitarist. When was it now? 2 years ago? Okay, I lose track now because obviously with the pandemic, time has gone into this weird void. But we had a lineup change, and he was just suggested to me as a guitar. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know he was in Sleeper at the time. He was just kind of mentioned as this guitarist called Jon Stewart. He was a wedding present fan, and so I met him. Well, I found a bit more about him. I thought, he was in Sleeper as well, because I don't think Sleeper were active at that point. I think they've kind of come back since. But I met him and had a chat with him, and he seemed really enthusiastic. And it's weird for me because I've never been in a band before with someone who's kind of sold more records than me. You know what I mean? It's always been my band. And then I've got this guitarist here now who's literally released platinum selling albums, and it's he's a great songwriter. He's in the studio. It's like having an extra producer in a way, because he's obviously very experienced and he knows how to make a record. So it's been really good. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
What about the rest of the songs to be released? Have you written them and already recorded them, or have you still to do that?
No, I kind of, when we did the Hit Parade in 1992, we didn't kind of do them all up front. We did them as the year progressed. So, and I kind of like that because we did them in 4 batches, and it kind of evolved, as we went through the year, really. And I felt like we should do that again. So I think there are about a third of them that are completely finished and they're in production now. And then there's a third that we're currently working on. And then there's another third that we've yet to write. So there is a kind of a looming deadline there. But I mean, it is a bit different because of the vinyl production thing. We have to do them a bit more in advance than we did in 1992 because then we had RCA's mighty kind of machinery. Can we press some singles? Yeah, they are next week, kind of thing. Whereas now you kind of book it 6 or 7 months in advance. So, but we've got this schedule worked out, and also it's cost more, but we are using kind of pressing plants which are kind of known for their reliability. Because I'd hate for it to be delayed by something. So we're paying a bit of a premium, which is one of the reasons why singles are more expensive, as you say. Because of that, we're kind of guaranteeing a certain amount of, well, I suppose it can't be 100% guaranteed because no one knows what's going to happen. But theoretically, we should be okay to keep a schedule, yeah. As long as we write the rest of the songs, yeah.
Do you feel a real pressure to write the songs, and have them out every month?
Kind of. I mean, I do feel a little bit of pressure because it's just time, and I'm a busy man, let's face it. But at the same time, with Jon and with Melanie, actually, the bass player, there's loads of ideas. It's just I know for a fact that there's half a dozen songs there waiting to be written, and it's just physically finding the time to get in a room and rehearse them and arrange them, and then write the lyrics and stuff. So I feel a little bit of pressure, but I'm fairly confident, really, because I think the material's strong.
Each of the records will come in a sleeve with photography by Jessica McMillan, and there'll be a collector's box to put the records in. So how can fans get the records? Where do they go to access, to buy or subscribe? Well,
you can buy it in a record shop, as before, but we decided in 1992 it was all record shops, obviously, all 15,000 were bought from record shops. But this time we decided to offer this kind of subscription kind of model as well, so people can subscribe to it, and you pay up front and you get them all sent by mail order. Because obviously our fans are like 30 years older now. I don't think they want to be queuing outside a record shop at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning anymore, or Friday morning nowadays. So yeah, you can get them by mail order, and there's links on our website and stuff.
Those days were great, though. Queuing up at midnight for a new release in the freezing cold.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but would you want to do it again, though? You know what I mean? It's when you're a teenager, but I'm not sure if you're going to do it.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
In 1992, when the Hit Parade was released, the band had a run of 12 singles in the charts, which I just found this out recently, but it's tied with Elvis Presley's record for the most top 40 hits in a single year. So how does that feel, knowing that fact?
Can I just point out also, actually, Elvis's some of their singles, some of his singles were actually re-releases. So
right.
In terms of
even better,
newly released records, we held the record there. But it's obviously I guess it's more to do with the kind of decline of the record industry at that point than it is to do with the, because obviously Elvis Presley sold quite a few more records than we did, because his record was set in 1957, I think. I'm sure it was million sellers, and ours achieved the same amount with, as I say, 50,000 of each one. But and it was quite cool. Obviously, weirdly, both artists were on RCA at the time as well, which is a strange thing, strange coincidence. But I'm quite proud of it, really. I mean, I think, like, for instance, I was just saying a minute ago, actually, that the fifth single, "Come Play With Me," was a top 10 hit. And, for a band like The Wedding Present, to have a top 10 hit purely on the sales of a 7-inch single, I think that's something to be proud of, really, because there's no extra tracks, there's no downloads, there's no streaming or anything those days. It was just people going out and buying that single, really. So, yeah, not to kind of devalue it because of comparisons to Elvis Presley, but I'm pretty kind of proud of that record as well.
And during that time, you played Top of the Pops a few times. Can you remember your first performance on Top of the Pops? Because it must have been really mind blowing. It
was. I think it's Brassneck, actually. Was it Brassneck the first one we did? Yeah, I think it was a couple of years before the Hit Parade. But I mean, it's strange for me because I always had this weird love-hate relationship with Top of the Pops, because as a kid I loved it. I grew up watching Top of the Pops. It was the place to see all the bands, the records, Hot Chocolate, whoever. Mm-hmm. It was the only place you're going to see them because there was no internet or anything. So I loved it. And then The Wedding Present started, and we were obviously not a kind of Top of the Pops type of band, really. And I felt like it was almost Top of the Pops was rubbish in those days, in the 80s. It was really, I watched the repeats now on BBC4, and it's terrible. It's terrible, horrible music. However, the alternative scene in those days was great. Sonic Youth and the Pixies and all these cool bands and stuff. So in a way, it was a different world. And so when we were finally invited to go on there was this kind of thing: should we be on there really? Because the Clash never did Top of the Pops. New Order kind of demanded to sing live, and it sounded terrible, but at least they did it, kind of thing. And I felt like, are we kind of selling out in some way to do Top of the Pops? So we did it, kind of, and I didn't take it that seriously, I suppose. And it's weird now because I see yours on the repeats, and especially when it was the live vocal era, it was a backing track with a live, and I didn't really try. I was really taking the mickey out of it, and I feel bad now because obviously, people, it's an historic institution, and people are still watching those programs now, and here's me kind of messing about with the vocals, but. So I wish I'd taken it a little bit more seriously, I suppose. It was. I mean, there were, we could have been on every month for a year there, but we decided to kind of, we were on tour in America at one point, I think, and they said, "You got Top of the Pops," and I know a lot of the bands kind of used to fly back from America just to do Top of the Pops because it was that important, and then fly back and carry on with the tour. And we were like, "No, we're not doing that. We'd rather do the gig here in Salt Lake City or wherever we were." And then the few other times that we actually made an excuse at once saying, "Oh yeah, our bass player's hurt his arm or something, so we can't do it," because we felt it was a bit weird to be so enthusiastic about it, and especially as obviously the single came out on the Monday. By the Tuesday or Wednesday, it's sold out anyway, so it was in the charts that weekend. So you're on Top Pops the weekend. So it was literally like a week and a half after it sold out, really, that you're on Top of the Pops saying, "Here's our new song," that people couldn't buy it. So. It didn't feel like there was much point, really, I suppose. So,
can you remember who was on the first show with you? What other bands?
No, I can't. I'll have to do some research on that. I remember the Stranglers were there once, and I remember Jason Donovan was there, and Manic Street Preachers, I think. But like I say, we did it like maybe half a dozen times in the end, and I can't remember who was on which program. I don't know if you've seen my book. Oh yeah, I've got this autobiography, which is in comic book form. Actually, it's I started doing it. It's this is volume 1, so this is kind of me, like growing up, and then the band starts. But when I get round to Top of the Pops, I'm gonna have to do a bit of research and find out who was on with us at the time, because I do vaguely remember bits of it, but I'm gonna have to look at program data or something.
Yeah, I must check that book out. Actually, I wasn't aware of that. Is that just recently out?
About a year ago, I think it came out. Yeah, maybe less than a year. Yeah, basically, we did a comic called Tales from the Wedding Present, and it was just little stories from the history of the band, really. And I got a friend of mine, Lee Thacker, who's a cartoonist, so he illustrated them. And then we decided to compile them in chronological order now, so that's it's gonna. I don't know how many volumes we'll do. It depends how long we keep going, I suppose. But yeah, that's the first volume. It's on our website if you're interested.
Yeah, I will check that out. During lockdown, you released the album Lockdown and Strip Back. Why did you do that? What sparked the idea? Was it just boredom, just to put something out there?
It wasn't boredom so much as that we were kind of felt a bit stir crazy, really, because we couldn't rehearse because all the studios had closed down, all the rehearsal rooms and stuff had closed down. So, I suppose the starting point was. I do a festival here in Brighton every year. We haven't done it for 2 years now, obviously. But the first year we decided, because it wasn't going to happen at the venue, we would do like an online version. And so I asked a load of artists to send in little videos of them playing songs basically at home, and we'd use them. And then I thought, we could do that as well. So we all basically, because these days you can do it with laptops and things. We all recorded bits at home, and then we got somebody to assemble them all together and mix them. And people loved it, actually. When we did the festival, we interspersed them throughout the event, and people saying, "Oh, you've got to release this on a physical format because it's brilliant." So we decided to release it. We did another one, actually. We haven't released the second one yet because we've just been working on it this year, but there's like a volume 2 that's going to come out again, kind of lockdown stuff. But we just kind of, I suppose it was an interesting thing to do, when you couldn't do much else, really. That and the book and the Bond compilation. I don't know if you saw that. We did a compilation of Bond themes for charity. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes. Have you ever tried to write a Bond theme?
Well, I think I have, in a way, because a lot of Cinerama, my other group, one of the reasons that kind of was formed in a way was because I loved those John Barry themes, especially the early ones, the twangy guitars and all the strings and everything, and the brass and that, and so I kind of formed Cinerama to do that. So there are certain Cinerama tracks which I think kind of feel like Bond themes. Of the classic kind of variety, not the kind of more modern variety, I suppose. But that Bond themes. But I've always loved Bond themes. In some ways, we could have done a whole Wedding Present album of covers of Bond themes, but we decided to ask other people to submit tracks, and it took about 7 years. But the pandemic was good for that, really, because it meant that we had time to get it all mastered and do the artwork and extensive sleeve notes and all that kind of stuff. So it was. It's weird for me because obviously I love playing live, I love traveling, and it is fundamentally what I do. But it has been quite good having these 2 years where or a year and a half where it's not been possible, because it kind of made me sit back and look at doing other things, like the book and the Bond LP and the acoustic versions, which I maybe wouldn't have done had I not had that time, really. So it's kind of been it's been interesting. I wouldn't wish the pandemic on anybody, but in some ways it's had a positive result for us.
If you were commissioned to write a Bond theme today, what sort of ingredients does a Bond theme need?
Well, I listen to Cinerama records, but it's basically a great song, great lyric, obviously, quite dark, I think. So kind of minor chords, I would suggest. But then, the sweeping strings, the punctuating, stabbing brass, the big twangy guitars, and then, an exciting arrangement, really, I think. Yeah. I should do one, really. They should ask me.
Absolutely. Do you have a favourite Bond song?
Yeah, well, actually, the one we do on that record, You Only Live Twice. I've always, but I love loads of those ones. I love Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever. All those kind of, especially the early ones. It's just a great sound. That sound of John Barry combining all those instruments together. It's weirdly, they're very hard songs to cover because some of the chords that they use. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but I'm used to D, C, E minor. And these are like E7 suspended ninth, and you think, what? Because it's kind of session guitarists and orchestral arrangements and things. And John Barry was obviously a classical composer, so it's a completely different world. And I've heard it a few times when rock bands or pop bands try and cover those songs. It's not as easy as it is covering another pop song, because it's a different world of arrangement, really.
I love Gladys Knight, License to Kill.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I think some of the recent ones have been a bit hit and miss. I didn't like Sam Smith's one, and I didn't like the bloke from, was it Pearl Jam or something? He did one.
Soundgarden.
That was terrible. That was the worst one. But the Billie Eilish one's good, I think. That's a nice kind of a classic sounding Bond theme.
Yeah, and the one Radiohead did, put forward for Spectre. It was never used, but it's a great song.
Yeah.
The band recently played shows in Ireland, which included gigs in Dublin and Belfast. So how did they go? And do you enjoy playing to the Irish crowd?
Yeah, we always love playing over there. I mean, I think I said at the time in Belfast, actually, everybody always says that. If you go and play over there, you always get a great reception, and people are up for it. It's just even that in Belfast, it was a seated audience. And it still felt like a rousing event. Really, it's always we always enjoy it. And it was a strange tour because we got the ferry and we arrived in Dublin, and we still didn't really know if the shows were going to go ahead because there was in both Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland, both the parliaments were saying, these concerts might not happen. If they do, they might have to be seated. And I was on the phone, to the promoter in Belfast, actually, and he was like saying, I don't know, really. I mean, probably go ahead. So we felt like, okay, we'll go, and if it gets cancelled, it gets cancelled, and we'll just have a little holiday. And obviously, they all went ahead in the end, although a couple of them did have to be seated. But I felt it was okay. I mean, we were doing Sea Monsters, as you probably know, and it kind of works as a seated venue, that, because it's such an intense album, and it's almost like this kind of theatrical presentation. It's like it's almost I feel like it's like one piece of music just divided into 10 segments, if you like, and so it works. It works fairly well in a seated theatre, but. It's when you started doing the other ones like Kennedy and the more up tempo ones that people are kind of a bit like, doesn't feel right to be sat down. And in Belfast, especially, the security were telling people to sit down. I noticed, as soon as anybody stood up, they were like, "No, sit down." Okay. So yeah, it was interesting, and I'm glad. I'm really glad we went, and people seem to really enjoy it. But it'll be nice when this strange time is over and we can just do normal things again.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about Belfast, I mean, I can't not mention the Wedding Presents classic debut album was named George Best after the legendary Belfast boy. So why did you name the album after him? And did you ever get to meet George?
I thought of the name just because I grew up in Manchester, and my team was Manchester United, and George Best was the kind of the iconic player when I was a kid. In the 60s and 70s, he was the star of the football world. Really, he was such a great talent. But also, he had that kind of the flamboyance and long hair and the shirt outside of his shorts, and he used to get in trouble for missing practices because he was out dating Miss World last night when he was hanging out with the Beatles. And as a kid, I thought, this is brilliant. He's like a rock star who plays football. And so, I always thought that, and also the name George Best, it just sounded like a great LP title to me. I know it's a bit weird because it's kind of attaching the wedding present to something which is not the wedding present in a way. But and I know at the time, people there was some confusion because some people thought it was an LP by George Best, called The Wedding Present. So it had its drawbacks. And I remember someone at the NME saying, you just want to associate the name of The Wedding Present with George Best, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do really. So I called it that. And I think the clincher was we found the photograph, actually, the cover. Because we went to a photo agency, a sports photo agency, to look at possible cut, and we saw that picture of him, and we're just like, that's an iconic record sleeve right there. so we picked it, and then our press officer at the time said, why don't we ask George if he'd be up for meeting us and doing a photo session? And we were like, we're going to meet George Best. Okay, and so apparently he contacted George's agent and said, there's this bunch of lads from Leeds who want to come down and have their photograph taken with you for their album. Would you be in for it? And he said, yeah. I think we paid him 500 quid for his appearance, and obviously didn't have a clue who we were. But so we did meet him. I didn't really speak that much to him because I don't know what you're like, but I get really nervous, especially when it's people you hold in such high, esteem, that I didn't really talk to him that much, really. Because George Best was in the room, it's surreal. But it was fantastic to meet him, obviously. And because I remember our manager as well at the time, he brought like a crate of beer down because he thought that would help us, get over the social anxiety or something. And one of the first things I did was, do you want a can of beer? And he was completely forgetting that he was, a reforming alcoholic at that time. He was like, no, I don't drink anymore. And how stupid. Of course I knew that. But it's just the nerves, really. Obviously, a kind of a sad tale as well, his life, but such a legend. Yeah.
Absolutely. When you started The Wedding Present, could you ever have imagined you would be doing it 30 years later? How long did you think the band would last?
It's funny that because on one hand I didn't, and we actually didn't even plan to make an LP. We just thought we'd do a few singles. But then there's part of me that thinks that's a lie, and I kind of knew I was going to do this because I was obsessed with it for quite an early stage, and I grew up listening to my parents' 7-inch singles, funnily enough, and I always thought that some way I'm going to have some connection to this, whether I be in a band or I'm a DJ on the radio or something, and so I wasn't surprised, and I'm not surprised that I'm still here now doing it 35 years later because I think it was kind of almost like I didn't decide one day I'm going to be in a group. It's just always been there. It's kind of always felt like it's going to happen in some way, and I've been lucky because obviously I've been successful at it. And I know there's a lot of people who haven't, and the groups have ended and stuff. But I'm a bit of a workaholic though, so I think I've managed to kind of sustain it even in the times when the band's not been as successful as it's been in other times, if you like. I've done nothing else really in my life. I've just been doing this.
Even after all this time, is there anything you would like to achieve as a band that you haven't yet?
No, because I don't really see it in terms of achievements or in terms of, I'm not very ambitious as such. apart from I've got this ambition, to make the songs as good as they possibly are and the records as good as possibly are. And then once that's finished, they're kind of out of my hands, right? Really. So in terms of the actual kind of the songs and the records, I don't really have any ambitions. I mean, it is nice to play live around the world, certainly, and that's it's one of the benefits that I didn't really think about. Obviously, you think about going on tour, and we've toured pretty much everywhere in Europe, and then all across North America, and then we've been to Australia and New Zealand, and we've done Asian tours. We played in Japan and Thailand and loads of places, and the fact that people have actually kind of paid for me to go to those places and play music has been amazing. So I suppose to answer your question, the one place we haven't been is South America, actually, and I know there's a lot of Wedding Present fans down there, so maybe we'd get there one day. But I'm fairly easily pleased in terms of I've got no overriding ambitions.
Looking back on the career, you've obviously been the mainstay of the band. Is there ever a version of the band you wish maybe stayed together a bit longer?
Quite a few of them, to be honest with you, because I always feel, there's it's been the story of the Wedding Present in a way that we have had these lineups. I do feel like I've been in 6 different groups, because it changes all the time, and you'll get a lineup together, for a good couple of years maybe, and the songs are going really well and the records are sounding great, and then somebody will leave, or somebody will, be so annoying that I have to ask them to leave, and it all shatters, and then it starts again. And I do feel like it's been, as I say, 4 or 5 times where I've just felt, what a shame, because this band was going great, and now we have to start again. Admittedly, you meet new people, they come in with new ideas and new inspirations and new influences, and we're off again, really, and it takes us to a different place. So it's not always been a bad thing that those lineups have ended, because I think it's moved the band on. And like I say, we're not one of those bands who's made the same album every year, because it's been a different band, on many of them. So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, really. Yeah, it's sad when people leave, but then it's happy that someone comes in and takes us somewhere else.
I suppose the only other band that would be sort of very similar to yourselves would be The Fall.
I think I'm less of a dictator than he was, though. I think Mark Smith kind of put people in their place, really. Whereas I always felt with the Wedding Present that it's not me. It's not me. I'm obviously the kind of singer and the main songwriter, but the sound of the band is the sound of the people in the band at that time, whether it be 1985, 1995, or 2005, whatever. It's different people, and they come together with different talents, and I'm just kind of 1/4 of that usually. Mm-hmm. So, and I've encouraged that, because I think it'd be a mistake for me to say this is how it's going to be. Why limit myself? And there's been times actually when we've certain lineups, we've had a rehearsal, we've written some songs, and I've come away thinking, I'm not quite sure about this. It doesn't sound like the Wedding Present to me anymore, and I'm kind of disappointed with it. And then I slept on it, and then come back the next day and thought, actually, no, maybe that's a good thing. The fact that it doesn't sound like the Wedding Present, and you get used to it, kind of modify things and stuff. But I've been quite fond of that.
Because of all that, if someone was coming new to the Wedding Present, what album would you recommend as an entry point for anyone?
I've no idea, really. I mean, people, as I say, they're all different. I mean, weirdly, I think the ones I'm most happy with are kind of the later ones, because obviously as a writer, the more you do it, the more you improve, and it's a skill like anything else. So as a writer, as a recording artist, as a producer, basically, or the rest of it. Obviously, I've got I've improved over the years. So when I look back at the really early ones, like George Best and Tommy, for instance, I think we actually re-recorded those, both those records, because I felt we could do it better, really. So I kind of wouldn't steer people to the early ones as such. But then, like I say, Sea Monsters Sea Monsters is probably one of the classics, but at the same time, it's very difficult to get into because it's not a commercial record, so that might put people off, really. So I've no idea, really, is the answer. And I'd say Watusi is probably popular, but then it doesn't sound like any other record the wedding hasn't been made, so maybe that would be the wrong one as well.
Just a few more questions, David. I like to ask my guests the following questions. Out of all the music in your collection, which artist or band do you have the most albums by?
Probably The Fall, actually. But that, partly because they made the most records, I think, than anybody else. I don't know how many Fall albums there are. Probably, I've not even got all the kind of later ones, but there must be 30 or odd or something. So, yeah, I've got most of them, really. So that it's definitely The Fall.
And which song or album is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure, I would probably say something from like Genesis, or I used to like progressive rock when I was a teenager, and I played those records, bands like Genesis and Yes and Pink Floyd, I suppose. I used to play them to death, so I kind of know those records really well. I still love them now, even though they probably do sound a bit pompous now and a bit over the top. And punk came along in the 70s, and I thought, yeah, this is great. This is more me. But yeah, I still have that guilty association with the pre-punk era.
And what have you been listening to recently that you could recommend to anyone listening?
I mean, it's tricky because I think a lot of there's so many bands these days because of the internet and social media and stuff. You can literally have a new band every hour. Someone can say that. And some of them are good, but I feel a lot of them are very derivative. I feel it's I've said this before in interviews, but I feel like we've kind of seem to have come as far as we can go with the guitars, bass, and drums and keyboards, I suppose. Because every new band I hear kind of always sounds like somebody else. I always think it's like they sound like a 70s punk band or a progressive rock band or a disco band or something. I think it must be quite difficult now for someone to come up with a new sound. Having said that, I don't know if you're familiar with a band called Black Midi.
Yes, they're fantastic.
Yeah, and I think they're amazing. I saw them because we played a festival with them in Barcelona just before the pandemic, and they blew me away. I thought they were fantastic. It's one of those bands where you're still surprised. You think, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that. In the middle of a song, and so yeah. Again, probably they're not the easiest of band to get into. The singing in particular could be probably off-putting for some people because it's not commercial, it's not pop sound, is it? But I think they're a great band.
Well, David, that's my questions finished. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this. I look forward to 24 songs next year.
Thank you very much.
And again, just anybody who's listening wants to get it, just go to the Wedding Present website and they can subscribe and pre-order. Is that right? Yeah,
everything's up there. All these links, just the weddingpresent.co.uk. There's all links to all the stuff we've been talking about, really.
Great.
Book, the singles, everything.
The book, and there's another book coming. Then
Well, that was volume 1, so yeah. I mean, it's definitely volume 2 on the way. It'll just carry on as long as we do it, I suppose.
Nice one. Well, listen, thanks again. Thanks very much for your time. And waste 24 songs, all the success. And look forward to seeing you back in Belfast again.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you there.
All right, David. Have a good day, mate. Thanks very much.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye.